For today's video, I'll be comparing neon tetras and Harlequin Rasboras, which are two very popular species in the hobby that are readily available. Both are consistently in stock in my local pet stores, and I'd imagine it's the same in other areas, and I personally keep both species together in my 40-gallon tank, but for this video I will sometimes use footage from other tank setups with them just to keep things interesting. So let's start by looking at their appearances, because there is some variety within each species. The standard neon tetra is one of the most recognizable aquarium fish in the hobby thanks to its striking red, blue and white coloration. There are some long-finned versions of it available, as well as a few specially line-bred types like the diamond neon tetra, but I can't find any copyright-free images of those to show in the video. Although they are not neon tetras, there are some very similar species in the hobby too. The Cardinal Tetra is probably the easiest one to find, which is similar to the regular neon tetra, and I also keep these in my 40-gallon tank, and they have a fuller red belly. The green neon tetra is slightly smaller, making it a good option for nano tanks, but it has slightly more subdued colours, but is often considered to be hardier than the regular neon. There's also the black neon tetra, which is actually from a completely different genus of fish, but it does still resemble some resemblance to the regular neon and is considered to be hardy. Despite the alternatives, I personally think the neon tetra looks the best, and it's easier to see why it's so popular in the hobby. During a recent video to my local aquatic shop, Gateshead Guppies, the owner mentioned that neon tetras are by far his best selling fish, as they instantly catch the eye while also being popular with everyone from beginners to expert fish keepers. I know Harlequin Rasboras aren't as visually striking as neon tetras, but I still personally like their slightly metallic pink to orange colour hues. This colouring is natural for Harlequin Rasboras, and it can be difficult to find in other fish that are popular in the hobby. In addition to the natural coloration, there are some harder to find line-bred varieties, such as these golden Harlequin Rasboras that have been line-bred to have more yellow tones. There's also the purple Harlequin Rasboras, which have also been line-bred to promote more black and blue hues in their coloration, and these really pop under good lighting. Similar to neon tetras, there's also a couple of closely related species in the hobby. The most common one in my area is the SPI Rasbora, which is a little bit smaller than the Harlequin but looks nearly identical. Another is the Hengeli Rasbora, which is slightly smaller than the standard Harlequin, but it does seem to be quite difficult to find in my area, and I've never seen them for sale. Overall, I do think neon tetras are definitely more eye-catching, but I do think Harlequin Rasboras deserve more credit than they get, so when it comes to appearance, I am giving the win to the neon tetras. Next we get to ease of care, but there are some factors with this one that are just out of your control, unfortunately. Due to their popularity, neon tetras are bred in massive numbers on fish farms worldwide, and this can lead to limited genetic diversity in weaker fish. One shop owner in my area mentioned that they only stock neon tetras from Singapore or the Czech Republic, as they tend to be hardier than neons bred in other regions. I have no idea if this is accurate, but here in the United Kingdom at least, it's relatively easy to check, because most labels will have the country of origin for the fish you are looking to buy on them. I bought my neon tetras from Kesgrove Tropicals, which unfortunately closed last year, and if I recall correctly, they told me they were sourced from the Czech Republic and they seem to have a decent survival rate. I've had them for almost 2 years now, and 60% of them are still alive, and I know this might sound low, but according to other reports that I've seen posted online and some friends in the hobby in my area, this is actually a good survival rate for neons. While Harlequin Rasboras generally have a reputation for being a more robust species, I did go through a 3-month stretch of bad luck with mine last year, losing at least one every month. I suspect it's probably a genetic issue with the species, as they are kept in my 40-gallon community tank with a lot of other species of fish, and none of the other ones were affected. Thankfully, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped, and I haven't lost one of my Harlequin Rasboras in almost 4 months now, and the species has a 73% survival rate in my tanks. However, if you're unlucky and end up with a weaker line of fish, you can run into problems with both species. But based on what I've seen online and from other people in my area, Harlequin Rasboras do tend to be the hardier species of the two, so I'm giving them the win for this section. So moving on to tank setup, and I want to focus on tank size initially because according to Seriously Fish, both species are recommended for a 54 litre aquarium with a base dimension of 60 centimetres by 30 centimetres, which works out as about a 14-gallon tank in the US. Now I am a big fan of Seriously Fish and have a great reputation in the hobby, and a lot of other sites simply rip their information from them, but I personally don't agree with these tank size recommendations for either species. In my opinion, neon tetras can do well in slightly smaller tanks around the 45 litre or 12 US gallon mark because they are not as active as a lot of people presume. As Tiny Menagerie points out in her video about neon tetras, they tend to slowly meander around the tank most of the day searching for food, and if they get startled then they'll shoal up and move around, but then it's still quite slow, and my neons act exactly the same as hers. So I honestly do think that they can do better than the more common recommendations that I see for neon tetras. On the flip side of that, I personally believe Harlequin Rasboras are far more active and would actually benefit from a larger aquarium than the generic recommendations you see online. Personally, I'd recommend a 75 litre or 20 US gallon long as the absolute minimum tank size for them. In my experience, my Harlequin Rasboras are far more energetic than my neons, especially when they're spawning, and they'll definitely make full use of the tank space available to them. Both species are social fish, and a lot of sources recommend you get at least 6 of them, but I started with 10 neons and 15 harlequins. Personally, I'd recommend you try and start with at least 10 for either species, then consider adding more in the future once they've settled into your tank, and depending on tank size and how they behave, you can increase your stocking level if needed. I also recommend including live plants for any tank that houses neon tetras, since they appreciate having places to hide. In my 40-gallon community tank, they'll often retreat into the plant cover when my Harlequin Rasboras or Corydoras begin spawning and increase their activity levels. Still, in my previous 29-gallon tank, where the stocking levels were a lot lower, my neon tetras still appreciated places to retreat to and hide away for times during the day. On the other hand, my Harlequin Rasboras rarely use the hiding spots in the tank, and they are far more confident and happy in the open water, but plants can still help maintain safe water parameters, so they can still be worth keeping in a tank with Harlequins. Overall, I would give neon tetras the edge in this specific category because I personally think they can be kept in smaller, cheaper tanks, making them more accessible to a wider range of people. So moving on, we get to water parameters, and both species have typical soft water fish requirements which make them very easy to care for. Neon tetras come from South America and thrive in temperatures between 21 and 25 degrees Celsius or 70 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit, making them handy for keeping energy costs down when it comes to heating your tank. Generally, they prefer a pH range of between 4.0 and 7.5, but I have seen people mention they have successfully kept neon tetras in higher pH tanks. When it comes to DGH or water hardness, anywhere between 1 and 12 is usually recommended, so most people with soft tap water won't need to make any adjustments and they should be fine, but if you do have hard tap water, you might want to look into lowering it with aquasoil, botanicals or certain types of driftwood. Harlequin Rasboras originate from Southeast Asia and have almost identical needs when it comes to water parameters. Their optimal temperature range is between 21 and 28 degrees Celsius or 70 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit, with their pH being between 5.0 and 7.5 with a DGH of between 1 and 12. It also makes it very easy to keep them with a wide range of other community-friendly fish in the hobby, so I am classing this one as a draw because both have very simple water parameters to maintain. So moving on to compatibility, and both species act in a very similar way in my aquariums and they are very peaceful. I've never had issues with my neons or my harlequins chasing their tank mates, and the males focus on their own kind when sparring for breeding rights. As I mentioned earlier, my harlequins do become particularly active when spawning, which can startle my neon tetras, Cardinal Tetras and honey gourami, causing them to retreat into the plant cover, but I honestly think this is due to their rapid, consistent movement spooking some of the more skittish fish species in my community tank, as I've never seen them chase their tank mates. So because of this, I do give Neon Tetras a slight edge for community tanks, but in my opinion it is very close to being a tie. I do want to quickly touch on activity levels, specifically schooling or shoaling with these species, because I often see people say that they are schooling fish, which in my experience is not accurate. While Neon Tetras and Harlequin Rasboras will bunch up and shoal around if they are frightened, this is a temporary response, and once they feel safe again they'll revert to their normal behaviour in the tank. My Harlequin Rasboras also group up randomly on occasion and shoal around the tank, but I'm not sure what triggers this, and my friend has Harlequin Rasboras and his don't do this, so it doesn't seem to be a consistent or predictable behaviour. So if you are looking for a fish that reliably shoals around, I'd suggest you look at something like rummy-nosed tetras, but I've not personally kept them, and they also require larger tanks. So yeah, even though both species will shoal around if they are frightened, it's not a reliable behaviour, so I wouldn't recommend either if that's what you're looking for. Moving on, and we get to feeding, and thankfully both species are very easy to feed in their own way. Harlequin Rasboras are a very confident fish that stay near the upper portion of the tank's water column, letting them quickly get to any food that's added, and their confident nature will let them eat quickly. That said, they rarely venture near the substrate, so once the food has sunk they typically ignore it, but their confidence still lets them get everything they need while the food is first added to the tank. Neon Tetras, on the other hand, tend to be more reserved and stick to the lower half of the water column and wait for the food to drift down to them. In my experience, Neon Tetras are more than happy to take food directly off the substrate too, so if something does spook them during feeding time and they hide in the plants, they'll happily come out later and feed on any leftover food without issue. It is worth noting that if you are keeping Neon Tetras in a community tank with other species, it's probably a good idea to watch the tank during feeding time, at least for the first week, just to make sure enough food is sinking down to a water level where the neons can eat it, and if it's not, you can start adding a little bit more food during feeding time. I use a mixture of Fluval Bug Bites Light Blue Label and NT Labs Micro Crumb for both species of fish, and that both enjoy it. I know that the NT Labs range can be tricky to find outside of Europe, but with nano tanks gaining in popularity, there are plenty of similar sized feeds available, like the Aquarium Corp Magic Small Fish Feed that has a very similar grain size. Both species also enjoy Frozen Daphnia, Frozen Cyclops and Frozen Bloodworm, and I guess it'd be the same with the freeze-dried and live versions available, but where I live it's just a lot easier and cheaper to go with the frozen varieties. So in conclusion, the best choice for your aquarium depends on your specific needs, but I do believe that Neon Tetras have the slight edge in a lot of cases. Their stunning coloration just catches the eye instantly. In my experience, if you can get them from a good breeding line, they are hardy and they're also very easy to feed. But on the flip side of that, Harlequin Rasboras are still a great option, but they do have the more energetic behaviour, especially when they're spawning, and this can scare some of their tank mates, and their subtle coloration also puts some people off them. Anyway guys, that brings the video to an end, and hopefully it's been helpful. Both species really are great options, and that's why I personally keep both. Thanks for watching and good luck with your aquariums.